What's up, y'all? I'm Reed the Fishmonger, and today I'm gonna fillet this up just for the halibut. We're in South Florida, so I had to get this fish flown down for Captain Clay and Son Seafood Market. When they get shipped down, they're headless, so unfortunately I'm not gonna be able to remove the cheeks for y'all, but we still have all that collar meat in there, and this giant, beautiful fish. Can't wait to fillet it up for you. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make a puncture right underneath that pectoral fin. And we're going to slide right around. Then we're going to cut hard underneath that collarbone. And you can just go ahead and fully remove it. We're gonna save this. There's lots of good meat inside of that collar. Those halibut wings are delicious. Or we can remove the meat and make them totally boneless, skinless. Now we're gonna make our cut right down there. Make a slight incision right in front of the tail. Now we're gonna take the tip of our knife and we're gonna slide all the way up. Now we've got this great opening to work with. And we're gonna slide back down. On halibut, before you get to the skeleton, you're going to have this kind of floating cartilage on top of it. So if you're just resting your knife right on top of it and doing a normal pull, it's gonna be very easy to cut right through that skeleton. So I did that to show you guys. So you see these white dots poking out, that's actually the skeleton. That's where you're gonna make your nice long motions on top of. If you try to make those long incisions before you get to the skeleton, you're gonna accidentally cut underneath it. Now we're gonna use the tip of our knife and make a nice long incision going to the top of that spine and separate the connection the pin bones make to the ribs. Now we're going to repeat the process from the other side. Tip of the knife, slide all the way down, get past the ribbons and the cartilage that they rest on top of. That way we can get to the skeleton, rest our knife right on top of that skeleton, get those long, smooth, satisfying motions that we're looking for when we're cutting halibut. Now, we already filleted it. It's basically completely there. It's just connected at the center. If you want to loin it out while you're filleting it, totally cool. What you want to do is find the bloodline. That's going to be your starting point. And then you're going to follow that line down. If you start here and cut down like this, you're going to lose a lot of meat. It goes from here slightly inward. You see this faint line, that's what you want to follow. But since we're already at the center, all you got to do, rest your knife right on top of those rib bones, separate that little bit of membrane that was connecting it, and flip her over. There's your gorgeous halibut fillet. Now I'll show you loining it out on the second side. All right, let's hit the second side. Puncture underneath the pectoral fin, cut out. It's okay with leaving a good amount of meat on that. We're gonna enjoy that when we eat our halibut collars. Easy peasy, comes right off. There's halibut wing number 2. Now we're gonna make a incision behind that bone right there. We're gonna make a slight incision on that tail, and we're just gonna slide all the way down. Super satisfying. Before we do any super long cuts, we're gonna make sure we get on top of that skeleton, which is on these bigger halibuts, a couple inches in. Once we get to that point, we'll be able to make those nice, long, satisfying motions, which makes halibut one of my preferred fish to cut. Where the ribbons are on the halibut, gives you a nice handle to hold on to. Hold on to that. You can see what I'm talking about. This cartilage is separated from this bone, so you want to get to this bone first, so that way you can rest your knife right on top of the skeleton and make your nice long motion, letting the skeleton guide your knife. Tip of the knife, go to the top of that spine. Now we can dip our knife on the second side of that spine. Tip of the knife, base of the ribs. Separate the connection the pin bones make to the ribs. And slide on down. And we're gonna just go like that. And that bad boy is completely separated. We're not floundering around here, you guys. Look at that. I mean, you guys, you can see the outline of the skeleton in that meat. We got it so close. All right, now the reason why on these smaller halibut, I like filleting it all the way through instead of high-loining it, low-loining it while I'm filleting, is because it's so easy to cut this way. And when you're loining it out, you can end up putting some serrated marks into your fillet. I'm a fishmonger. This is going into a display case at Captain Clay & Son Seafood Market. So I like these nice, smooth, non-jagged lines. Though if I was filleting a 200-pound halibut, I'd probably loin it out also. So we're gonna go ahead and do it now that we've got those nice, beautiful, smooth lines. You can find the pin bone line and go on one side of it. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go to the other side of our pin bone line. Wanna get as close to that as possible. We're at a seafood market. Every drop of this fish costs us money, and we wanna get as much of that back as possible. So, wanna make that bloodline paper thin. We don't want it in there, but we also don't wanna lose any of the meat, so as thin as possible. Now this membrane, we wanna just gently shave off. Again, we don't want to lose out on any of that meat, so we want to make these cuts as paper thin as we can. Get underneath it, and just a gentle push usually pulls off the whole thing. And we're at a fish market, so we like beauty. So there's jagged edges. We're just going to gently shave off those jagged edges. The point where it dips down to the skin is where we're going to cut it. The customer's not going to get any meat out of that. And there's our low loin, there's our high loin. Now when it comes to cutting and displaying, I usually, right at the point where it starts to dip down, is where I'm gonna cut it. The top of the low loin has a little bit of that belly on it. Belly on halibut is not like belly on a tuna where it's a super marbled fish. It is pretty similar to the rest of the fish. You could see on that cross section, you've got the low loin here, you've got the belly here, and there's not much difference in fat content, just more sinew to meat ratio as it gets down to the belly, so it makes it less ideal for the way people like to prepare halibut. So I'll put that in a display case at a lower cost, and if it doesn't sell the day I cut it, the next day it goes on the smoker and gets put in our homemade smoked fish dip. Skinning halibut is super easy. Mostly because there's a thin layer of fat between the meat and the skin on these cold water fish. So we want to get our knife underneath there, get a good grip on that skin, and just push forward. Even with this 7-inch knife on that wide fillet, it's super easy to get off. And when you skin, having a flat knife as opposed to a knife that's at a hard angle down, what you get, all of these white fibers are called sinew. And that is going to be fibrous and chewy. And if you had your knife at a hard angle and scraping it like a lot of people do, all that extra sinew would be on your fish. And I opt out of it, but if you wanted to have your knife at a slight angle, you could get a little bit more yield out of your fillet. Do you guys do anything with your halibut skin? Comment below, let me know. I'm a Florida boy, I don't know what to do with halibut skin. Now, when it comes to cutting up the high loin, this is what I do. I'm gonna square off the head first, because it's misshapen, still delicious, that's gonna go on the smoker. And now that the head is off, forward and pull back. You want these nice, long, smooth motions. You don't want to be sawing at your fish. Now what this does is it gives us these beautiful, beautiful center cut high loin medallions. That is just phenomenal stuff. A lot of customers like cooking with the skin on. A lot of them like cooking skin off. We will leave it on and give them the option if they want skin off. Super easy. And now it's skinless. So in my opinion, that is the prize of the halibut. Center cut, high loin medallions. I cook them in a cast iron pan just like that on their sides. If they're too thick to finish all the way through in a cast iron, I'll finish them off in the oven, and so good. Now, what to do with your halibut collars? Well, I'll tell you what not to do. Don't frickin' throw these things away, you guys. This is delicious halibut meat in here. We're just gonna gently shave away some of this membrane. Again, getting as close to that membrane as you can, so that way you're not losing out on any of that meat. On snappers that aren't too big, or fish in general that aren't too big, I'll leave that membrane on. Larger fish, I typically like to shave it off. You can feel where the bone is loose right there. We're gonna break that. You can cook it up like that and eat around the skin, or we could take it a next step further. We're gonna cut off that pelvic fin, and we're gonna skin it while leaving the bone on. It's a pretty fun way to do your halibut collars. Now look at that. Now you've got a membrane-free, nearly skinless halibut collar. And unlike the belly, you got a good amount of fat in the collars of those halibut. That's an absolutely delicious cut. You guys do not throw away your halibut collars. All right, now if we want to go boneless, skinless, what we're gonna do is we're gonna puncture our knife right underneath that collarbone and outline it. Outline that bone, get as close to it as we can. We don't want to lose out on any of that collar meat. And there we go. We shave that as close as we can. That's bone right there, bone right there. Again, we're gonna get as close to those bones as we can. Cut right in front of that pelvic bone. And then once you get in front of that, you can flip your knife around, remove the skin. Wow, you guys, look how delicious that looks. And now we're gonna shave off the membrane. It comes close to the cutting board right there, so that's where we're gonna start. So that way we can get our knife nice and flat underneath it. Make sure you don't have your knife angled down. It's very easy to cut through this membrane. And voila, there's your thin piece of membrane, no meat lost. You guys, thanks for watching. Have a killer day.